Hello, everybody. We are tuning in now for our adjunct panel. The title of the panel is Adjunct and Beer Trends. I'll go ahead and introduce the folks that are with us. To my right, we've got Chris with Uncapped Podcasts. He's been helping us out through all of these amazing resource of information and has just been really, really great. Helping us get through these interviews. So we asked him to join us on the rest of these as well. So you'll be seeing him and hearing from him again today. Down below me, you've got Ben with Fourscore Beer. Ben's doing some crazy wild hype beers, and also is my partner in crime for Tattoo Roulette. Let me see it, Ben. Nice.
I can't actually twist my arm the proper way to get a good view of it, but there we are.
Oh, man.
That's beautiful.
It's the most awkward place to show people. It's either upside down or me really contorting myself to a point where it's really uncomfortable.
Look, it could be more awkward, and you could have. Where's that?
There it is.
Yes.
Nice.
Fruit and ouzelfinch. Yeah, so Ben and I had to get tattooed for our tattoo roulette, which was the beginning of what was supposed to be the online fest, which crapped the bed on us. But we followed through with it and went and got the tattoos. So you'll hopefully get to watch a recap on that here today. But also, I want to introduce Will from Pretentious Beer Co. Will, is that your real last name?
Yes.
Oakenshield. I never knew that.
My parents were into The Hobbit.
Yeah. I don't.
I don't think parents pick last names, do they?
Yeah, I think that's the way it was. You son of a bitch.
Will's with Pretentious Beer Co. out of Tennessee, which I grew up in East Tennessee myself, a little further east than Will is, but we went out there to do some crafts. We went out to East Tennessee to work with some craftsmen on some other stuff. And we ended up getting a hold of Pretentious to do a glass blowing session with them. And we went over there, got to try their beers, plan a collab, watch Rachel dump beer in her face with the pour on. And then we just hung out and what else did we do? We rode scooters,
electric scooters
around Knoxville.
The barcade.
We went to the barcade and played taxi something.
You and I tried to proposition those people, but we didn't have enough money.
Yes. Yeah, we propositioned them for food, Will. Food. We did have enough. Well, we didn't have enough money, but freaking Matt helped us out. Matt bought them.
I'm telling you right now.
You're stupid. Oh gosh. All right. Well, yeah, we had a lot of fun in Knoxville hanging out with those dudes, and so we invited them on. Both of these guys are doing some really crazy, fun stuff with their beers, and I'm here to kind of lend a little bit of our perspective as well, as far as we see, kind of the more adjunct heavy hype beers. And again, Chris is here to just talk and hang out and make us look good. So, all right, well, let's get started, shall we, gentlemen? Anybody have anything they want to start out with or say first?
Drink lager, adjunct beers will make you fat.
Yes. Will recently lost about 400 pounds, I think. Right, Will?
And all I did was stop drinking adjunct beers. So.
Lager.
Yep. And vodka with a little bit of tap water.
Yeah, just a tap. Just
what about pastry pilsners though?
Oh, I mean, I love. We make them like if there's something that we can throw adjunct into, we do it. Yeah, you know what I mean. We've done some lagers that were like not pastry, but definitely it wasn't a lager anymore.
Yeah, I think those are my favorite. We did a sour lager one time, which a lot of people hated on us for. Or actually, we did. I think we've done a couple of them now, but we we got a little bit of flack for that. And then we did an imperial lager, which people got mad about because they felt deceived and lied to.
Yeah, who goes to a craft brewery looking for experimentation? You know.
Right, exactly. Good Lord.
How does a sour lager work?
I mean, we just threw bacteria into our one of our lager recipes and let it drop the pH. Basically, I mean, our house culture that we had threw off a lot of like lemony kind of flavors, and so it actually worked insanely well. So it's kind of like a lemon. I don't know. It's taking a lager and squeezing some lemon into it is what it tasted like. It was great.
I don't know. I think New Belgium, a lot of what they're not the old school stuff, but some of the newer stuff, they're doing like traditional sour lagers. So I mean, this does exist out there and has before for a while.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, we created it though. I mean, we.
Of course, yeah.
All right. So adjuncts, Ben.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you're doing out at Fourscore. I know you guys have been open, what, a little over a year now?
Yeah, we're coming up on 2 years in August, so we're getting there on that side of things. And we didn't start off, totally on this side. Chris has something right there that we made together. But yeah, it's just we've evolved into this. I think initially we were doing fermenter sours, so we were kicking out into the fermenter souring and then pitching on top of that. And we have a dedicated space in our brewery for that side of things. And then as new yeast, sour vasier, so, genetically modified souring yeast, it all happens in one shot. You don't have to take up your kettle. It's, you can take care of that with, normal cleaning standards within the brewery. That allowed us to kind of reimagine what we could be in terms of packaging and stuff like that. And we've just, kept the trend going forward, and I think at some point, you're just outdoing yourself, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just continually stepping your game up and trying to do better than last time and find new creative ways. And that's just kind of how people have responded to us. So we just keep going with it.
So you're using lactic acid producing yeast strain and not bacteria at all?
Correct. We were using bacteria in the beginning, and that was draft only, and it did quite well. But not like we're doing right now. So I think, yeah.
Oh, sorry. What kind of pH are you able to get with those yeast strains?
Pretty consistently in the low 3.1s, 3.11 to 3.13. We have 4 different bases we use for our sours, depending on what the final take is going to be on it. One of them goes down to 3.11. I think the highest one goes down to 3.17. So we're still getting, and the nice thing about that is the TA levels, the titratable acidity, isn't that high. So it's really clean, it's really bright, and by the time all this fruit hits it, it's really not like abrasively tart like you would think something that low would be.
Nice. That's awesome. That's pretty killer. I think you and I had this conversation in the car when we were going to get tattooed, but I don't remember a lot of our conversation because I was scared out of my mind to get a stupid tattoo on my arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, that's pretty freaking cool. I think I think there's probably a lot of breweries out there that don't even know about it and would open up a world of opportunities for a lot of folks to kind of get into the sour game. You have a lot of breweries that are really scared of it and don't understand the process when it comes to working with, the different lacto and PDO strains. Most people use lacto. We use PDO in ours as well. So. But a lot of folks just don't understand, how to do it properly and how to use it without, messing up everything else they have going. So folks tend to stay away from it. But I think that's awesome to be able to switch that out, and then now you have all clean tanks, clean lines, clean
everything. Standard cleaning protocol takes care of it. And on top of it, you're not taking up the kettle space for 2 days or so. Which for us is important, both from a time standpoint and also from a labor standpoint. There's only 2 of us that run things here in back of house. So, like, being able to not have that tied up ever is absolutely ideal for us, in terms of whatever cost it could be in terms of the yeast, it pays off tenfold on the back end for us and the ease of use in general.
Hell yeah, man.
Are those yeasts newly developed, or have they been around for a long time?
Well, I mean, I guess they've been around a long time in terms of like biologically, but in terms of isolated and able to use on the level and how we're using them now, that's a very new thing.
That's pretty cool. I can honestly say I wish that it's something we had messed with a little bit more, because we have double bought everything. So every time we buy hoses, we buy double. Every time we, buy gaskets, we buy double. Every time we buy anything, we buy double. So, we also sour in the tanks, and so we have 4 sour tanks and 2 clean tanks here that we utilize, and so it would be much less of a headache and hassle if we knew that we could run everything through the same system. How aggressive is that strain? Is it something that, I mean, what are you looking at as far as like attenuation goes with do you have any problems with it continuing to attenuate afterwards, or is it kind of die out pretty early?
It's consistent as hell. Pitch it right. You can only use it once. I've known some folks who have repitched it, and the results are a month-long ferment. There's a little bit of lag in my experience right at the start, and I assume that's when I do see the pH dropping significantly during that time. So I assume it's a similar kind of mentality of what's happening anyways in the process if I were doing it, we'll say kettle souring. But now we're just looking at, a maximum a lot of times of 10 days from that brew day to getting it in the can if I really stretch things. So I know some folks do it even sooner, but that's just my comfort side of things. But in terms of attenuation, it's rock solid. It's rock steady. Yeah, so it's Philly sour. While it's a good product, I just haven't had the same consistency out of it. So that's why I stick with the sour base.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, dude. I think that's it's killer. So outside of what you're dropping pH with, tell us about your hype beers. Tell us. I mean, you obviously have some really, really thick boy hype kind of sours. Probably some of the most thick beer that I've seen. So tell us a little bit about the thought process. How did that come about? Is it something that just kind of happened? Was it planned? And we know, I mean, obviously, if you check out your ratings online, you've been absolutely destroying Untapped. So with a lot of your thick beers. So I think tell us the story behind that.
Yeah, so I think Chris just poured one up there, and that's one that he and I did together with Brian Voltaggio in his restaurant showroom up in Frederick, Maryland. And the idea behind that one was pairing it with a dessert that they would have on the menu for a little while. It was just basically, building off the concept of, hey, here's this dessert. I'm going to make something that matches right up next to it. That is a blood orange coconut tart, I think is what we called it. So there's a combination of, so just to go through that one, just as a good explanation, instead of using pure blood orange in that one, if I went the pure level of blood orange that we used in that and only blood orange, it'd be just a big tart, overdone monster. So we mixed some regular Valencia orange back with it and some Caracara orange. We rested our base on a lot of toasted coconut. I forget what the amount was, but it was in that 15 to 20 pounds per barrel range, maybe a little more, but my mind doesn't keep that stuff around too much.
20 jumps out in my mind.
Yeah, that toasted coconut, though, provides that big cookie aspect of things. It doesn't have that huge tropical aspect. So it's really kind of pairing up to that dessert. So that's kind of the process behind that. It's almost more of a culinary take on things, and that's, that balance factor. If there's something I need to jump, then we make sure that there's enough behind it to stand up to it. It's just really taking – I tell people this all the time. I generally don't drink these beers. It's not my style. But I enjoy the challenge of making them for folks who want them. So a lot of my evolution in this has been literally just listening, watching feedback, not like living on Untapped or anything like that, because that is a really bad space for a brewer if you take it too seriously. But looking at where like the consistent threads are and what people are saying and what the reactions are. And it's like, okay, I'm on the right road here. So as you say, like super thickness, like that comes from feedback. That's what people want right now. So,
and this isn't even one of his thickest. This is like a medium thickness for a Jamba.
And it's all built off of, massive fruit use, and just getting that base beer. That's something that stands up to it.
Yeah.
We build our bases pretty high in ABV, so we can blend back pretty significantly with fruit and still achieve that ABV listed on the label. That's the one thing nice about Cervasier too. It can go up to 14% without even thinking. So,
that's awesome. Yeah, we do the same thing. I think a large majority of our beers, I think we shoot for about 6% usually in final product, and so we're blending a lot back ourselves. Yeah, man, I think I got to try your stuff at the fest a few weeks ago, and it was absolutely killer. So loving what you're doing. And think it's been cool to kind of shoot some stuff back and forth too between you and I over the last couple of weeks, and just kind of pick brains and see cool thing about collabs and getting to know people in the community is everybody's always doing something different, and so you take any opportunity you can to learn off other folks, which is a good segue into talking to Will a little bit, because Will introduced us to a process when we were there. Will and Alex and Matt, which I think we're going to get to meet Alex here in a little bit. But Will is one of the brewers / he draws things at Pretentious Beer Co.
Pay taxes too, man. Don't forget.
Yeah. And we talked quite a bit about process when we were down there hanging out with them and talking about collabs and what we were going to do. And honestly, some of the things I took home from that just day and a half we spent down there was pretty freaking killer. And then, you got to see people that kind of had the take on beer that we do, where it's like they really care, but at the same time, like, you just don't give a damn about what you're putting in it, which I think is awesome, because that's kind of our approach. The Ouzelfinch brand was started on this secret society, and that exists here on this old fort that you guys got to come and hang out on a couple weeks ago. But the Latin inscription on the bottom of the Ouzelfinch crest from 100 years ago stands for "What the hell do we care?" And so that was kind of our take on like beer, and it still is, honestly. I mean, I care about the product and I want it to taste absolutely amazing, but it's also to the point to where we want to challenge what people know as everyday beer, and challenge the palate and really make people rethink beer. But I think that that's something for me, hanging out with the Pretentious dudes. Man, they're absolutely doing some really funny, crazy, awesome stuff. And I had a beer down there with them that was orange. It was like Fanta beer. And
it's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I don't know if you want to give away your secret, Will, on how you guys made that, but let's talk about the Fanta beer.
Yeah, it all started with, so you saw we have like a 6-barrel system, and we'll split it into 2 fermenters. So at the first, we would start a little bit more hesitant on one fermenter, do something that, and the other fermenter we play around, and then finally we just said, you know what, like, let's just do it. So we'd order like soda syrup and just pour that in with the beer. There you go. You got a Fanta sour. You melt some Skittles in a double boiler. You pour that in the beer. There you go. You got a Skittles sour. And we went from overcomplicating things to really getting it to taste exactly the way we wanted it to taste for less money and less time, ultimately. But yeah, the Fanta beer, we just got Fanta soda stream syrup and put it on a good sour base. People lose their minds over this stuff. I love it.
Dude, it honestly blew my mind when I tried it. I'm like, this is amazing. How did you make it? It's so accurate, like, to a T.
Just 5 or 10 years ago, people would have lost their mind. Like, if you were taking a knee during the national anthem or something, people would lose their minds. And now it's
people were still losing their minds over stuff like that.
In my opinion, like, if I'm going to make a Fanta beer, I'm not going to put oranges and sugar in it. I'm just going to put Fanta in it. And then it'll taste like Fanta.
And it did.
So
it did. We saved the real fruit for the IPAs.
So you have on one end of the spectrum just dumping Fanta syrup in beer.
Right.
Which obviously a little more complicated than just that.
I have a degree in brewing, believe it or not, and I'm putting Fanta in.
But on the other end of the spectrum, you have Fourscore and Ouzelfinch beers that usually have a laundry list of ingredients of different fruits and different things that are in them. Often, in my mind, things that sound like they're not going to taste very good together. How do you come up with those combinations of flavors that you're going to base the beer off of?
Is it, you asking me?
No, because you just throw Fanta in beer.
Right.
Oh no, they.
No, that was. I mean, I would say Ouzelfinch seems to have the most. I mean, like, what was one of the? Is it the Das Yum? Maybe it's not. I can't remember. One of them has carrot juice in it. Like, I would never think of putting carrot juice into a beer. But
I mean, honestly, yeah, I don't know. We're starting to like kind of back away from some of the craziness just because it literally is it's stuff we appreciate and it's stuff that a small minority of people appreciate. But it's like what we're starting to realize is the more polarizing a product is, the less well received it is, and so. We'll do smaller. I think for us, we're moving away from the craziness and more. At least for our bigger batches that we do, we have the 8-barrel tanks, which we can do anything in, and we'll continue to do some crazy stuff. But like we use maca powder and the Zaddy juice that we had for the fest, and that was something where, we had people talking about that beer saying, "No, I don't taste the maca," and honestly, you don't want to taste the maca because it's not good, and so to be able to use it, to be able to use ingredients like that and really just balance out the flavors. That's something Rachel is really, really good at. And so for her, it's all about balance. And so if you have a lot of our beers, you'll notice that a lot of the flavors are really balanced. When you start finding the ones that aren't as balanced and are more like one-sided, just sweet as all get out, like that's normally a me thing. And if you find something that balances perfectly, that's more of a Rachel thing. And so she's so good with flavors and understands it so well. But on the other side of the coin for us, it's not just sitting around thinking about what goes good together or what do we think goes well together. We, we've done we did an interview a couple weeks ago and we were talking to the folks and my most used source for ingredients and flavor pairing is the Flavor Bible. And so, we have a flavor Bible here and we'll go through there and we'll look at, basically we'll pick our core ingredient or we'll say, if we want a blueberry crumble pie series or pie beer, we'll go in there and see what pairs well with blueberry and what pairs well with graham cracker and then find some similar adjuncts and ingredients that will pair well with that. And then, but we're always going back to the Flavor Bible to make sure that every ingredient that we have in that beer pairs well with each other. So we're not just throwing stuff willy-nilly into the tanks, trying to create something that nobody's had before. However, that said, we did a Caterpillar beer, which was the Hungry Caterpillar book is based off of that. And, the idea was to put everything the Caterpillar ate into the beer. And so the first day the Caterpillar ate all the food, we put all that into the mash, which you really don't taste it. That was more of a gimmick, was just say it went in there, a pickle and a lollipop and, but then for the fruit, we, which the Caterpillar ate on the second day, Will knows this story. I read it to him a couple of times. He stayed at my house when he came in for the festival, and so he had some trouble sleeping, and so I had to read it to him a couple of times, and gave him a little juice box of the Caterpillar beer before he went to bed. But it was the Caterpillar literally eats all these things in different proportions. It's like one fruit, one proportion. The second fruit was in two proportions. Third, 3, 4, and 5. And so we took those fruits and we basically divided them up into the batch in the proportions that the Caterpillar ate them. And accidentally, it tasted effing phenomenal. I mean, it was It was unlike any flavor that we had gotten out of any beer. But I think the thing that really for me that changed it, which you're not used to tasting in beer a whole lot. We use apple was one of those flavors, and we bought this like apple almost paste concentrate apple, and it was a big drum of it. And not only did it thicken the beer up like crazy, but it also just added a different element to the beer that most folks aren't used to tasting in beer. And so, for us, I think the apple was the one thing that we've never used in any of our beers before. And it came through really well. So I think, all that said, we have our moments of crazy where we just put shit together and let it work itself out. And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes we dump it down the drain. And then you have a majority of what comes out of our brewery, at least we back up through the Flavor Bible and through online resources for flavor pairings to make sure that everything works before we do it. Yeah. What about you, Ben? And Will does more than put soda in beer. I can attest to the fact that I've tasted some pretty good stuff over there that wasn't soda flavored. The soda.
I'm gonna make a beer based on the writings of Hunter S. Thompson. So we're just gonna put a bunch. We'll talk about it later.
Ben, what about you guys? What do you do to come up with those flavors?
So I think it starts in a few different places for us. So we do a lot of it, right? These days, and I'm splitting batches, sometimes 2, 3, 4 ways. So we want to make sure that we, number one, have variety in whatever that release is specifically, or even within that month sometimes, so that, we're just keeping an eye on that. So sometimes it's really chosen around just keeping variety and keeping like one base fruit and things. Or sometimes it's an idea that I see in a dessert recipe. Sometimes I just want to we just made a beer based off Pink Starburst. And I'm like, I need to find a way to get this into a beer. Obviously, Pink Starburst is not something that grows on a tree. So that flavor is what it is. But now what can I do to build something around that? So what can I do to make it pop?
Was really good.
Thank you. What beer can what ingredients can I use to make it pop, to balance it out, to give it some texture? So it's about the kind of whole picture. And one thing I wanted to use with that was dragon fruit, pink dragon fruit, which I think is awesome. And that's just basically liquid. So now I need to kind of build that up and get a tropical aspect of things too. So naturally mango pops in place. Sometimes it shows itself easily based off of one ingredient, and sometimes it's just like, we're doing a beer this week based off crunch berries. It's like, obviously, again, I just want that flavor profile in there, and I want something that looks a certain way. So it's building around that. And it's just finding, I think, it's similar to what you're talking about, but mine just is kind of shooting from the hip and what makes sense in my head more often than not. So it's not necessarily just throwing shit together. It's literally something that's been rolling around in my head for maybe months before it finally comes out on the paper. And, I keep literally a spreadsheet around of these things, go home and I'll drink a bunch of bourbon or something and just start writing down ideas. And sometimes it's like, holy shit, that's amazing. And sometimes it's like, what the hell were you thinking? So,
how much bourbon did that take?
What's that?
How much bourbon was in me when I wrote this one down?
Yeah, it happens like that sometimes, and but a lot of it is based off of just making sure the pieces fit together, making sure that texture piece is there, making sure there's flavor combinations. I'm not drawing anything, out of something, but sometimes that still happens. In terms, I did a raspberry cherry beer not too long ago, and somehow cherry's a very polarizing thing for folks. They either love cherry or it tastes like cough medicine to them. So this one went right down the middle. So it's like, okay, lesson learned, not going there again. So a lot of it comes from those kind of aspects and just continually growing this, and sometimes just challenging myself. And then sometimes it's like, I haven't used this fruit in a while. Let's find a way to get it in the mix. So yeah.
So what you just said was something I hadn't thought of, because there's a lot of breweries that have just made a pink Starburst beer and just use just the Starburst, but they're not breweries that make the super thick fruited sours and things. So is that tend to be why breweries that do focus on that thickness have a lot of other ingredients in them too, so that they have something to build that body up with?
I think sometimes. I think it's just about the total picture with that kind of stuff. Whether it's flavor profile or mouthfeel, whatever it may be, you're going to find your way back to where you're trying to go, kind of thing. Like, hopefully you have an end idea in mind before you start throwing that stuff together. So I think it's more of that. So like for me, it was Pink Starburst. That's the start of things. Now, how do I build backwards to it, kind of to make this work in the scope of what we do on a daily basis and what the expectation is of us as well.
Now, there's a few you've done with pomegranate in it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for flavor or is that more for coloring?
No, it's a pop ingredient to me. Like I don't like to use that because it can be such a strong ingredient, but can really amplify certain flavors. So if you're using dark red stuff in there, if I had to go back to that raspberry cherry beer, I'd probably add a little bit of pomegranate in there because it would take away from some of that, medicinal syrupy side and just add a nice tartness underneath things. And it would help elevate both of those two, the character of the raspberry and the cherry, instead of having, a lot of sweetness to it. So that's where I use that quite often.
We've had horrible luck with pomegranate. We've banned it from the brewery. We call it the devil's fruit, so we don't we don't bring it in.
If I'm using like 15 boxes of fruit in a beer, two max. That's it. It can never be more than that. There's certain things I bring in on the regular that kind of live in that realm where they are awesome in very small doses, and as long as you don't make them the star of the show.
Yeah, hell yeah. No, it makes sense to us. I mean, honestly, we've had issues with pomegranate, and it's always something different. It's not just the flavor. We had flavor issues one time, but I think another time it was just fermentation issues and all kinds of weird stuff. But Will, tell us about some of the other beers out that you guys are doing outside of the soda pop beers, because I know you guys had a laundry list of weird stuff going when I was there as well.
Yeah, so we try to do a pretty large variety. We titrate everything. So when you have our sours, we'll have a pretty large variety. Some that will be kind of sweet, some that will be with some citric acid. After we've added the adjuncts, so like we have Fairy Floss, which is our cotton candy sour. Typically, we'll do that with raspberry and blackberry puree. Really no way to titrate puree like successfully, so we've just gotten to where we know on a 3-barrel batch, depending on what we're going for, how much to add. All of our New Englands or hazies, whatever you want to call them, on the other end, we'll typically do like a fruited IPA, and that's where we'll really sometimes up to 3 boxes of Oregon fruit, which is it's 42 pounds a barrel, which is quite a large number. Then we also do some stuff. We do a sultry, which is a raspberry hibiscus blonde, so a crushable beer, but a lot of adjunct in it. So it's got a lot of hibiscus, a lot of raspberry puree. What was the other beers that I'll let you have? And then we took some grain to Benton's bacon and had them smoke it for us. So we used our own smoked grain adjunct to do a smoked lager. So we looked for really anything that would go into a beer short of like some hippie crap or something like sandalwood or something like that. But
hippie crap.
Really anything we could do. And then we try to also plan ahead because we do slushies like you do. So especially with those sours, the thicker ones, we're really planning ahead. Is this going to also taste good as a slushie? So yeah, as far as our flagships go, if we had flagships, 5 out of 6 of them are probably heavily adjunct. Either sour or New England. And then our stouts, we do the coffee stout, cinnamon roll stout, chocolate, the mocha vanilla mocha stout. So I think the only time we release a stout just as a stout is if it's been aged in a barrel. And the only beers we release without adjuncts are the lager, which you had, and regular IPAs that are just off. Everything else has a lot of money. We basically should just throw money into the fermenter at this point, but it's not. We're not here for profit.
I mean, and that kind of comes back to Ben was talking a little bit about the trends earlier, and the panel is called Beer Trends. How important are trends when it comes to what you're doing? Because a lot of brewers will look at the shit that we're making and shake their head and be like,
yeah,
I'm not doing that. That's not real beer. That's not da 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 da. but you know what?
Yeah,
People
in
are
Knoxville,
buying it like crazy. So you
in
know,
Knoxville, the hazy beer is always king. But then seasonally, so like in the fall and winter, those thick sours. But then in Tennessee, no one wants to drink a very heavily thick adjunct sour in the dead of summer. Like it's just a bad idea. So then you'll start to see the crispy boys happen, and then it all goes back to New England's, and then once again it rolls back to sours and stouts. So Tennessee's very predictable in their market. That everything really only gets about 15 minutes, except for the hazy.
yeah, honestly, it's way different here. I think we could sell
Yeah, I
hazies
noticed.
all day long, but it's we don't make as much hazy as we do. Obviously, the thick sours, and so we sell a lot of sours throughout the entire year. And you know, one thing that we've really focused on is as we've grown our business is to focus on those markets where they do sell well throughout the year. You know, like Florida, Georgia. We sell a ton in California, really hot places, and so you know we sell sours all year round. But
No one drives one state over for the Pilsner. Like they're driving that state over for the hot beer, and the hot beer is going to be the sour.
what's
And
your
those
take
are the
on?
people you want. You want the people taking your beer back to their state, even if you're not in that state. It just
Yeah,
it just
100%.
betters your odds.
What's Ben? What's your take on my original question about the other brewers and how they shake their heads and you know they don't really want to they'll never make beer like this, you know?
I mean, I'm here to run a business. You know, every beer basically at some point was pure experimentation, and whether it sticks around or not, that's a different story. Some classic styles have stuck around for decades, centuries at this point, and some haven't. But at the end of the day, like I'm not the one who's deciding that. The people come in, they tell us what they want, and we brew based off of that. So we're a big mix here in terms of what we do. We do the hype beers, and we put them in cans, and they roll out on the weekends. And we get a good amount of movement during the week on those. But what drives our business here is a Pilsner. It's a Hefe. It's our just straight American IPA. It's our hazies. We keep a mix on the board. We have mixed culture foeder beer on the board all the time. So it's just like I'm here to sell as much beer as possible. And my idea is listen to the people who are coming here, people who are spending their money with us. We want to keep them coming back. We want to play with trends. We want to, figure out what's new, what's different. Maybe we will find something that sticks around for the next few centuries. Maybe we won't, but that's not for me to decide. For right now, I'm here to make beer that sells. So I'm fine with being able to keep the tap room going. During the shutdown, the COVID whole scenario for us, our staff here did pretty well. We had a few of our full-time bartenders. They were able to buy houses because of what we were able to keep going during this. So, like, in terms of somebody, like, going on a high horse scenario and saying, I'm only brewing pale ales forever, well, then you're not there to run a business. You're there for a hobby. And if that's what you want, awesome. But that's not why I'm here.
Yeah, I would 100%
Or like
agree.
tailor the business to be like, if you're winning medals on traditional styles, that's one thing. But if you're just brewing a shitty pale ale, like, try something different.
Yeah. I mean, there's like the dudes at Chilling who were at the festival. I mean, they are making phenomenal lagers, and that is their game, and they are doing it as well, if not better, than anyone else out there. So, like, these places exist, and they're great. And if you want to give them your money, then that's where you should go. Like, this is kind of like what we exist off of, our society exists off of, basically. So, like, I'm not one who's going to sit here and tell anyone what to do or where to go or what I should or shouldn't do. I'm just here, to do this, go home, drink a little Modelo, and hang out. That's it.
I don't understand the people who constantly will reply on a beer release of a fruited sour or a hazy, even sometimes asking if the brewery makes real beer.
Yeah.
Because almost always that same brewery also has a lager on tap or a traditional IPA or something else, but there also are plenty of other places just go buy beer. If you don't want that stuff, don't buy it.
Yeah.
But like, sales prove there are a lot of people who want to buy them.
Yeah, your money speaks much louder than your mouth ever can on that side of things. So just do, Stop taking people down with that, and just like go where you want to go, and that's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
Yep.
There's plenty of all of us to go around for everything. So like, if this isn't your style, then that's awesome. You know, like hang out with me at a bar and drink some Modelo one day. I'm in every day of the week. So
You know, I don't think I've ever drank a Modelo.
Oh
Really?
my God.
I've made up for you on that side of things.
We'll change that.
But like to
Four
the
of
point
them
though,
comes
like
from
Ben,
money.
you routinely have releases where the beer sells out within hours on a weekend. When was the last time one of your Lager Life beers sold out in a matter of hours?
Never.
Yeah, so
You know, this time around, like I did a rice lager. I'm super happy with it.
it's really good.
Thank you. But I decided I have the labels. I decided not to put it in cans. I decided I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna roll this on draft for the rest of the summer because this is what people like the tourist, you know, constituency here and like the locals. This is what they want. This doesn't do me any good to put in cans. Now I can keep a good tap line on for the summer. When somebody comes in and wants something a little less than even my Pilsner, here it is. Have at it. It's awesome. It's drinkable. It's crushable. It's a fair price point. And here we go. If I put that in cans, I'd probably be hurting myself because that same person doesn't want to come in and get a beer poured from a can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we
Russ, how does real beer sell in terms of expediency compared to your other beers?
yeah, I was honestly about to say we got so sick of people coming in here and asking. I mean, I can't count how many times folks would come in here and be like, "Do you guys make real beer? Do you have real beer?" And so we made a beer and we named it Real Beer, and it's a series that we do. It's our lager series, and so honestly,
all I drank
yeah.
at the fest.
yeah, me too. Well, that I did that in the barrel aged the barrel aged beer, but or the barrel aged sour we had, but it you know it's an easy drinker. It's light. I will say that our distro is not interested in it at all. Not for the fact that it's not good. It just does not sell out in market. However, you come to the brewery. I mean, it's the one beer that we stocked up on for the summer, and so all of our lagers, you know, we're setting aside 4 or 5 half barrel kegs for the tap room of each beer, and then this one we've got 26 half barrels set aside for the tap room because people come out here. It's hot as crud out here in this field in the summertime, and folks are just destroying it, and especially the Czech lager that we have right now, which is the newest one, and you know, and it's I think it is more catered to our market. When we started doing sours here, people thought we were nuts, and when we said we're a sour brewery and in an area that's probably 10 years behind the times, people thought we were nuts, and they're slowly coming around, but and so are the other breweries locally. You start, you know, folks that said they'd never make sours are now popping out like fruited sours every now and again, but it's you know, the lager for us has been killer in the tap room. So, and you know, we have a Hefeweizen that we've had since the day we've opened, and I hate that beer. Absolutely despise that beer. Can't stand it. But I can't get rid of it because I take it off tap, and folks lose their ever living minds in the tap room. And so, you know, it's one of those things that I've just had to accept, and we, you know, we've tweaked it over the years to make it a little bit more ours. So I think it's 100 times more palatable now than what it was when we first made it. But it's still, I'm not a hef person. But if we lose that beer, people will, I mean, they'll lose their shit over it. So
we did the same here. We weren't going to make a hef. There was no plans in it, but like that's all we got requests for. So I'm just like, I'm going to do it my way, and it crushes. It crushed.
Yeah, same. Let's Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Is there an adjunct that you just refuse to use outside of like disgusting things that you would never ever put in a beer in it anyway, but like actual ingredients that would be feasibly used in beer production?
Pomegranate.
I figured you had already answered that one.
Black currant for me. I've done it once, and I am not going back. I had a really bad experience with that. So
anything powder too, you got to be real careful with, because we ordered, you know, there's certain fruits that are really hard to find, and there was one that we ordered. It came from Taiwan, and we were super stoked about it. And I probably spent, $2,000 shipping it here, and then you spent another $2,000 on the damn powder. And then we got here, and it got here, and we mixed just a half of what we had originally thought we would need in. And the powder obviously tastes nothing. I mean, it was so earthy and so bitter, and it tasted nothing like what the fruit should have tasted like. And so we've had that happen to us a couple of times now, to the point to where we literally are we've dumped enough beer over putting powdered fruit in there, and so we steer away from powdered fruit at all costs. And for us, it was using something that other folks aren't using, and that was kind of the piece that we wanted to be able to put that on a can and use something that you normally can't get, but it was not worth the expense, and it ultimately ruined the beer. So we stay away from anything powdered for the most part, outside of everyday spices that we already know how it's going to handle.
What about you, Will?
We use, as far as powders go, we'll use, Kool-Aid mix if we're going for something like that. Or
I thought about you last night. Actually, there's this new show, Fresh, Fried, and Crispy on Netflix.
Right.
Yeah, I was watching that last night.
The guy that's doing the deep fried Kool-Aid made me think of you, Will.
It's quite delicious. But no, we use, as far as powders go, like we messed with maca or matcha before, did not have success. We use a lot of powdered drink mixes for our slushies just to keep the consistency right. But we don't mess with powders a lot either because.
Well, I meant more of just is there an adjunct you just refuse to put into a beer?
Yes, matcha for one. But
matcha does suck.
I'm pretty cool with all adjuncts as long as I don't like sour salt, but other than that, I'm pretty cool with all of them. I absolutely will not mess with extracts and things if I don't absolutely have to. That's the one, if you even call that an adjunct. That's the one thing I've been burned by too many times. Yeah, and then also I'll be careful about cherry because we use potassium sorbate as much as possible, but cherry, if it does re-ferment, I'm not a fan of what the beer turns into. It's kind of thinness. We had one sell really well, but I couldn't drink it, but everybody loved it because it was like red wine kind of. Which is cheating in a way, but sure.
We had the same thing happen with ours. We did a strawberry Nesquik beer, which literally tasted amazing when it went into the tank, and we didn't have the pasteurizer at the time, and so we had to fully attenuate it out after the fact, and so it basically fermented out every single bit of sugar that was in that thing, and we ended up with an 11% pink Nestle Quick strawberry wine, which if you go to it expecting that, it's really good. But if you're expecting like sweet, sour, kind of consistency, it didn't hit it at all. That's the one beer now that we have our pasteurizer in that we're going to re-tackle here shortly because that's the one do-over I need, because that beer, I had so much hope for that thing and it didn't work out at all. It gets you really, really, really drunk really fast because the ABV ended up quite high. But you brought up an interesting point, which I was talking more about full attenuation of the product after the fact. You mentioned potassium sorbate. Ben, I think you said you use potassium sorbate as well, right, Ben?
No, we have a kind of 2-stage filtration system we use. So we're able to cut that out of the mix where we take large particulate out, then take the yeast out as it goes on the fruit. So that's kind of the side we tend to go on, but we're small. We're doing that 4 barrels at a time, so it's happening in the background. And I'm very tank heavy here. I have a lot of bright tanks, so things can happen in the background here while we're, as opposed to going that route to really kill things.
Yeah, that's right. You were filter and what were there were 2 that you were doing beforehand.
I did the biofine beforehand.
Yeah, that's right. Biofine.
Yeah, yep. So the biofine just helps drop the yeast out, so it just makes this filtration just a little bit easier. So large particulate on the biofine drops that out and send it over on the fruit through a 0.5 micron filter, which we haven't seen any issues with it yet. I think, if we ever see any failure or anything like that, that's when sorbate definitely comes into the conversation.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised. Before I bought the pasteurizer here, we obviously had some major issues with cans exploding up until our pasteurizer. And so it was a big button topic for us, where some breweries can do it and get away with it. We're not one of those breweries. And so we had some distributors that loved it because they understood what they were getting, and they were able to sell it to the consumer that way. But then you had other distributors that didn't too much care for it, and kind of hurt some relationships there. But it was one of those things that I made some calls to a bunch of different breweries and asked a lot of questions about, potassium sorbate, and the resounding answer that I got back then was, I've never heard of anybody doing that. Well, fast forward to this festival, and we had all these breweries out, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Because everybody's like, oh man, the pasteurizer would be amazing. A pasteurizer would be amazing. I was like, I just assumed all these folks had pasteurizers. No, everybody's using potassium sorbate, which for me, I was like, damn it, that's we just spent $130,000 on a pasteurizer. And
well, it's a wine yeast thing originally, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's as effective on stack yeast or not, but it's been working on like a smaller batch fresh, so.
Yeah, I think.
Batch, I don't know if you would be able to get it homogeneous enough or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say it will work. I mean, I'm pretty confident of it. I think the yeast, or not the yeast, the potassium sorbate itself, basically, as long as you don't add it during active fermentation, it will work. They're saying that usually you wait till active fermentation is over, you add it, and it basically makes the yeast incapable of reproducing, which is
after
what
de-rest.
keeps it. Yeah.
We made that mistake.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, by accident, but we did make that mistake.
Yeah, the yeast is able to go through one cycle of feeding, but that's it. It's not able to replicate. So in terms of using it, it's pretty fail-safe if you use it in the right dosage.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, honestly,
is pasteurization foolproof?
As long as you're on the machine right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If you do it right, yes, because we honestly have had one beer here so far since the pasteurizer that has exploded on us, and for some reason, man, our Smashmallow series with the marshmallow, it's always that beer. We've never, I don't know what it is about the damn marshmallows, but we use a crud ton of marshmallow in that beer. We I think we're up to 650 pounds that we use. We literally go down the street to Food Line and they order us, literally 2 pallets of marshmallow, and we pick it up and throw it in the back of one of our brewers' trucks, and we bring it out here and cut it open one bag at a time and toss it in. And so, but I mean, we're up to about 650 pounds there of marshmallows, and something about that marshmallow just is a little difficult to work with when it comes to that pasteurizer.
So that's an adjunct that seems to be approached very differently and almost like a 50-50 split with breweries. So like why are you using actual store-bought marshmallows as opposed to using a like a syrup, or what's the is it an extract, or what's it called?
Fluff.
Yeah.
There's all the ways to add it.
Yeah, Hey, Alex, how are you, sir?
Oh man, living the dream. How you guys doing?
Good. Matt needs to buy you guys some better Wi-Fi because it keeps breaking up on us.
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Is trash here.
Yeah, tell Matt I'm not happy about it.
Tell him I'll get cleaner first.
Alex is one of the other brewers there, Pretentious. Obviously he and Will and Matt are a ton of fun. We had a blast with those dudes. But yeah, Chris, with the marshmallow question, I think for us, so we had tried marshmallow fluff to begin with, which we didn't realize is way different than actual marshmallow, so you don't get the same flavor. And it to me got to the point to where we were just listening to customer feedback, going back to the customer feedback piece, listening to customer feedback. A lot of folks are like, it says marshmallow, doesn't taste like marshmallow. So we put more in it. Next one, it says marshmallow, doesn't taste quite like marshmallow. And then on the third run, I'm like, screw this. And I drove my car around and bought as much marshmallow as I could find from here to Virginia Beach and back, and ended up with probably 350 pounds of marshmallow. And we threw it in and melted it down and pushed it into the tank, and it came out, and people were blown away with it. And so it was just one of those things that, like, now we know it works. So we do that. And, we have friends that use different marshmallow stuff. We are starting to kind of play around with blending the real marshmallow with some of the other marshmallow like syrups and stuff to see if we can get a better marshmallow flavor. We did a marshmallow peep beer, and peep marshmallow is way different than regular marshmallow, which, I mean, it's a good beer and you can tell it tastes like Peeps, but in my opinion, it's the worst. It's the worst of the Smashmallow that we've done, just because Peeps are weird. So
there's a Swedish fish marshmallow coming out.
I saw.
Oh,
that.
really?
I saw that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That has. I mean, I imagine in a matter of months there will be a slew of Swedish fish marshmallow beers being
Regular
released.
people won't get to touch them. It'll be all by us brewers. We're just going to eat them all up. Stupid crap.
When is that coming out?
I don't know. I just saw like a
Snack
blurb
Bash or something like that.
Put that right there.
Duly noted.
That's been another one of those internet comment things that I often find funny in regards to marshmallow, where people will ask if brewers are using real marshmallow, or are they using asking those questions. And I was just like, what exactly is a real marshmallow?
Yeah. Marshmallow is growing out back. You know what I mean? Like, they're all flavor at some point. So I think we're all just using what works for us. Whatever we found in our process that works, there's a variety of ingredients. It probably all comes from one or two flavor sources at the end of the day. But, it's like whatever works for us is what we're using. I don't think there's a standard or anything like that. And mine even changes beer to beer based off the flavor profile and what I'm looking for out of the marshmallow. So, when you go out and buy your, Jet Puff marshmallows, there's nothing real in flavor in there.
100%.
Yeah, it may be called natural flavor, but that's just what the government allows you to call it. It's not really natural. It's all lab created. So, I mean, what we're using on that side, I think the best answer is always whatever we found that works in our process and what we're doing every day.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think, again, every time you work with somebody, you find out something new. And so, we're constantly picking up feedback from other brewers to see what works for them, what doesn't. Marshmallow was a big topic of conversation with Alex and Will when we were over there. And so, we are starting to kind of try a bunch of different things to see what works best. But I mean, honestly, Chris, if you ask any brewer, regardless, normally the answer you're going to get is yes, it's real marshmallow, regardless, because
it's all real. Because it's not a real thing.
And honestly,
the Swedish fish marshmallows are currently out and available.
Oh well, I'm going to put that on the schedule. You guys, we could do an Oozle Finish 4-score pretentious collab.
See, how many marshmallows you can get? Let's do it.
All right, I'm down. I'll text you guys, and we'll get it knocked out. Put it on the calendar.
I want in on that too. It was my idea. After the hundreds of other people have already thought of it.
We'll put it. I'll throw out the group collab text. Yeah, man. But honestly, it's normally just not even worth trying to explain that to people sometimes. So, everybody has their own take on it. And, going back to what Ben was saying earlier is like, do you like it? Is it good? If the answer is a resounding yes, then by all means drink it. I've had marshmallow beers that I know for sure have the marshmallow extract in it, and they're every bit as good as the one that we do with the 600 pounds of real marshmallow from Food Line that isn't really real flavor. So, yeah.
What about using actual candy as an ingredient?
We do it all the time.
Yeah, it's a specific choice scenario. Like what are you trying to get out of it? So if you know what you're trying to get out of it, again, it's the same thing as marshmallow. It's not like pink starburst flavor is something I can go out back and find or anything like that. We all know what it is already before we eat it. So it's what's the best way to work that into my process, and what form of that ingredient is going to be the best way. And we have some things that have worked around here. We just stick with it. It's what we're used to. It's what makes sense to us, and we just keep on that.
And a lot of it, honestly, is marketing too, because you'll find that. I mean, for instance, we did a Trix collab with WeldWorks a couple weeks ago, and we put the flavors in there that reminded us of the Trix yogurt, and that was the whole thing with the collab, is these two beers that you can mix together, one made there, one made here, that was supposed to mimic the Trix yogurt that you could mix together. And so, for us, there's no way to get that Trix flavor 100% that you could get, and without having some type of proprietary information that they're never going to share with anybody. So it comes down to getting it as close as you possibly can and marketing it that way. And when folks have that association in their head and they taste what's in front of them, they're going to marry those flavors and those, the aromas and stuff with the marketing and that experience. And so for us, that's always a goal, is to, if we're using something or if we're trying to mimic something, which we do a lot of here, it's every bit as important that your marketing's on point, just as it is, knocking the flavors completely out of the park.
If you say it's there, it better be there.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I've had ones that were labeled as being a certain candy, and you taste it, and it tastes like not even close or remotely to that candy. It was a good beer, but it still landed as a huge disappointment because it didn't have any reminiscence of that candy.
Yeah, you can't not try, at least. So that, I mean, as much as the marketing piece is cool and killer and essential, you have to sit down and nail down how you're going to achieve those flavors.
More often than not, it's not just throwing that one ingredient or that one flavor in there to get what people are expecting, because how it reacts with the beer isn't always the same as what that baseline is.
Yeah. Jump in, Alex.
Oh yeah, candy beers. We've been doing shit tons of them. We do the Candy Shop series. We actually brought the Skittles Sour to the Sour Fest. The purple bag. I don't know if anybody had that.
People love that one.
Yeah, it was the purple bag, not the red bag. But we've essentially just been double boiling down whatever candy we want and back blending it into the beer and just putting loads of it in there. And it's working out pretty good. We'll have some troubles with the color though, because it can turn kind of dookie brown on you if you don't watch out.
Had that happen a few times.
But
although
we just started doing that in the last few months and digging it.
In this day and age, do people even care?
Semi.
Like
the color. I would say here in Knoxville, Tennessee, there's definitely some people that care. But not everybody, not everybody. But I care a little bit personally as a brewery, I'd rather.
Yeah, I would agree.
Toilet water looking.
But
if it tastes amazing, then
we made a zombie inspired one, and that is not the best looking cocktail in the world. So I'm starting with a really awful baseline there, and it looked just like the cocktail at the end, and it tasted like it. So I mean, I guess that's a win. But really brown, whatever. It's not the best thing that you want to put forward in one of these.
Tough.
Yeah.
I wish I would have tried that Skittle one now, because the High C one, that was phenomenal.
Oh yeah. That one.
Wait, was it High C or Hawaiian Punch, or are they even different?
I believe it was High C and ice cream powder.
Yes.
Putting that one. Yeah.
That one was really good.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
the ice cream powder. That's a fun little adjunct to be putting in some sour beers. I don't know if you guys have messed with that much.
Yeah, it's sort of. it the I was going. I had a thought, and it's going to come back. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, coloring. So I think we learned the hard way. We did a sherbet beer, and we went and bought 2 pallets of sherbet ice cream from Food Line down the road here, and we dumped it. It was amazing going into the beer, and the beer looked awesome because the just like everything in the kettle was just like swirled in colors. But by the time it was done, it was brown. And dude, it was so good, but it looked like an oxidized hazy is what it looked like.
Yeah.
And so but I think now, experiencing that and going through it, to Ben's point earlier on in this whole panel, was, he used no more than 2 boxes of 2 boxes of pomegranate because it adds awesome color and yada yada yada. One of the things that we just screwed with that you don't really taste a lot of if you use it in good proportion, but it adds a crud ton of color, is beet juice. And strawberry Nesquik. If you look on strawberry Nesquik, you flip it over to figure out how it gets its color. It gets its color.
You have to be careful though, because I've had beers that have used that for coloring, and you could taste it.
Oh yeah. Well, we just did a beet juice beer. I'm not opposed to it. I think it's all
get the bowels going.
I don't know yet. I've only had it once, so I don't. Dude, I usually just drink our lagers.
There you go.
But
I just got back from Mexico, so my bowels are cleared out.
Oh, nice.
I will hear that.
Speaking of adjuncts.
So in the category of trends, they're like intellectual property borrowing it seems to be like growing more and more. Do you think that is going to become a larger problem to the industry with more and more places cracking down? Or do you think most breweries are doing enough job of making it more of like a homage, satirical, or staying within the fair use categories?
I personally think that it's a little bit of both, because you have some breweries that are so blatant about it and don't give a damn. We're not one of those. That's one thing that I don't want to do, is get sued by somebody that has a lot more money than we do. So that's never a good scenario. And so it's I don't know, man. We're not blatant about it. Ours, like you said, is really satire on everything, but it is reminiscent of the actual products. But I mean, I've seen people not even try not to rip them off.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna have
what about
to
you?
This one off to Will. He designs all of our stuff, so I would feel
both of y'all sit down.
Missed
we get both of you guys sitting in there.
I'll hang on him. I'll hang out.
No, that was a great question. I'm actually glad you asked that, because we've been really careful about that, because, as you know, we do all the boards. So before we ever even started using brand name products, we were dealing with this already, kind of that realm of what can you do and how is it okay to be done. We'll use the term Skittles. We won't use their logos. We won't use like their like Taste the Rainbow. We won't say things like that. And anytime we use their product in a photo, A, it's a product that we've purchased, but B, we're only showing their wrapper and their product. It's not been altered in any way. So as far as we've been told what we're doing, they can come and say, stop showing our product, but they can't tell us we can't buy and put it in the beer. That would be,
can't you get in trouble listing it on the can? Because there was a brewery recently that was sued by, I think, Hershey.
Yeah.
For one of Hershey's candies was listed as an ingredient, and they filed a trademark.
Yeah, if we ever did a can, I wouldn't use the term Skittle. I would use like candy covered, or like candy shell tart candy, or whatever the hell you would call it at that point. And then we did that a lot with our menus too. Anytime, like, I know you had the Pedialyte thing that you looked into trying to get them to sponsor. And we had a similar situation. So instead of using that particular name on our board, we just described what the candy was to good effect. Everybody knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I
'Cause
mean,
that seems to be the most dangerous area that breweries have gotten into, not like ripping off like nostalgia type labels or anything. It's actually just listing a trademarked product
Yeah.
as an ingredient is
Well,
where they
CEO
seem.
of Nestle might be a big craft beer fan, but there's good chance that the board is not really into craft beer as far as it goes. So you always want to show respect and, like you said, homage, and don't talk about it overly, because then they might become afraid. They don't want their product engaged with, especially with craft
they
beer.
make their
right
money
now,
off
there's
kids,
a few
man.
things happening. So.
Well,
That's
then
the biggest-
some of them are doing legitimate licensing agreements with people. Like Hershey's has the Yingling beer, so obviously they're going to go after other breweries that are
Exactly.
Yeah, we definitely walked
you
that
don't want
line.
some brewery to start making a Skittles beer that's licensed, even though you were doing it first. You don't have a leg to stand on at that point.
We definitely walked that line. I don't want to say I'm pretty knowledgeable about where that line exists and where to step over, and I know enough. And I think we definitely I've taken a step over here and there, but I make it a practice not to do it on a regular basis and just do things the smart way. While I'm not ever trying to rip someone off or use their imagery or creation for my own good, these are just pieces of, I guess pieces of me, like, growing up. And I think a lot of people relate to that. So that's, a lot of where I'm coming from with using some of this stuff. It's just things that help shape me and get me here. And I'm just trying to literally not use that for any sort of leverage piece. It's just fun. It's stuff we all relate to. And it, makes the community a little bit tighter. And it's like we all are, have a lot of similarities and we all grew up similar. So it's like, as much as we're different, that also, gives us the tie and gives us something to talk about. And it just gives a little bit of like nostalgia to things too a lot of times. So more often than not, when I'm using this stuff or kind of walking that line of parody, it really isn't for any, nefarious thing or anything like really trying to just leverage that for my own, personal wallet or anything like that. It's just trying to make something fun and something irreverent and just something that we can all relate to.
Well, and a huge portion of the craft beer buying market is people in their late 30s, early 40s who a lot of time maybe won't be happy with their current lives and are nostalgic towards the things they loved as a child. And it, like, I don't know. I'm a proponent of if it makes you smile and it makes you happy, then, and as long as you're not like just straight up, like you went and found an old poster from something like a Nintendo something and slap that on a label. Like if you're having legitimate original original artwork done in a way that isn't just recreating something, I and it's more of a twist of it, I don't see a problem with that. Now there's still people who for some reason think that's the worst thing you could ever possibly do, but
my lawyer uses the term transformative, so that's what
is what is written into law.
We try to do the Weird Al when we do something. You got to just make it transformative and different. But you could do the Teletubbies. You could draw them in different colors and different ways, and people know that's a freaking Teletubby, man.
I mean, who would make a beer with a Teletubbies label, though?
I have no clue.
I would.
I never do such a thing.
Something tells me Ben has a Teletubby beer.
Right. We're gonna put Teletubbies in a beer.
Hey, the way we literally, if you look at a lot of our labels where we pull from stuff like that, we just have our mascot, the Ouzelfinch, dressed up in a costume that looks like whatever it is, whether it be, with the Nesquik beer we did, we had that one. I'm trying to see if I have it in here. Don't
be weird. That's probably Beaker, right?
Yeah. So,
I think stuff like that's completely fine because it is your character just dressed up as something. Like I see no, like there's a beer I did with a brewery in Rockville. And the series is called Super Hype Bros, and on two of the labels it was myself and the brewer drawn as Mario and Luigi.
Oh,
I
that's
mean, it's
awesome.
basically just us wearing red and green, but like you could, it was obviously Mario and Luigi just with our faces and
noticeable.
heads.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's awesome.
But then to that, like someone gave me the best piece of advice. They said that Halloween costumes are typically not a licensed deal, so just keep that in mind when you're doing parody. Is pick the most depraved son of a bitch you know, and then put him in a Cinderella costume. Disney can't say anything. You know what I mean? It's just a dress.
Well, speaking of, it's just a dress. You have a drawing of you in a tutu or something, right? Or no, is it a bikini?
God, Russ.
Yes, we got to show it. I mean, this is almost done, but you brought it up, so I have to. So they have all their labels hanging on the wall.
Oh,
there it is.
Oh boy.
So Will recently lost some weight. I don't know if I told you that.
It's cocaine waffle diet.
It's so stupid.
But no, it's not the beer to be drinking if you're trying to lose weight. So it kind of has a double meaning for me.
Right.
So go ahead, Russ.
I'm gonna let you go ahead, but after that, I'm gonna close it out because we're gonna go a little bit over here.
Well, yeah, this is just what if you looking into your crystal ball, what do you think the next trend's going to be? Where is craft beer headed? I assume that's probably what you're going to ask anyway.
That was exactly what I was going to ask, and I was going to start with you.
With me?
Yeah, I want to know. You interview a crud ton of us. So what is the next trend? What do you think? Putting in beer. What do you think the next trend is going to be?
Well, I actually think going backwards is what's going to happen, and all the brewers are finally getting their wish that people will drink more lagers, and I think lagers and West Coast IPAs are making a comeback. I don't know that they're quite like they're going to get the hype or that hazies or fruited sours get, but I feel like that there's more of a demand for that now, and there are more and more people that are seeking out those types of beer and want a really well-made Pilsner or a really well-made Kolsch that are sometimes with new hopping techniques and newer hops.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I'm with you on the lager side. I don't want West Coast to make a comeback. I West Coast myself out when I got into beer, so I'm over it. Tried one the other day. Not really feeling it, but
I think a lot of breweries have forgotten how to make a good one.
I would agree there too.
I think the palates have changed, though. I think that what we used to know the West Coast isn't going to come back as the same West Coast. So I think a lot of what we picked up from hazies and what the part of hazies that the overall likes is going to find their way into West Coast. So I think it'll be a modified kind of scenario there. But I do think that a clearer, softer, a little less bitter, a little bit more aromatic side of things, but just a little more crisp and a little bit more put together. I do think that'll come back and be called the West Coast now. The crystal malt. Yeah. Crystal malt will basically leave the situation, and we'll find our way back to something that hasn't been yet, but kind of at the beginning days of hazy IPAs when we were kind of sitting right in between, all trying to figure out how to do it, and we were still taking a lot of old school West Coast ideas into what a hazy is. I think that's going to come back as what a West Coast is now.
Yeah, I would agree there. I mean, yeah.
And can I add one more thing? Smoothie seltzers. I think
don't worry.
They're inevitable at this point.
Oh, there might be.
It's already happening, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's inevitable that is a next big thing. It's already partially there.
There's one in the tanks right now. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll send you one in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I got the labels in for print this morning.
Don't forget the Braggot. The Braggot is the next big beer style.
I don't believe you.
The Braggot is going to make a comeback, my friend. We talked about this at the fest. I'm telling you, it's going to be the next hot beer.
Yeah.
No, what is all right? All right. Well, let me ask you this: what is, instead of trend? I mean, it would be a trend, but what's the next accidental ingredient that somebody's going to put in beer that you think is going to work?
I don't know, probably
be
malt or hops or something. Get back to just making beer, probably. No, I'd say that
use malt.
The next crazy adjunct. God, I mean, this whole cooking thing and beer mix is really happening. I'm starting to see a lot of people doing like some savory style beers. So I'd say that we're going to be seeing that. I've seen some people experimenting with bone marrow specifically, which scared, we talked about that years ago as a joke, but now there's some breweries going for this whole savory experience. So I don't know.
I can't. I don't know if I can get on board there.
No, I can taste it savory before, but
I was gonna say I can see some pieces of it coming in. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the savory side of things, I can see some people really nailing that down. But
mushrooms and stuff like that.
Yeah. I've had ones. I've definitely had beer brew with mushrooms. It shocked me in how good it was. So I think I think like things like this can come into play, but there's going to be very few of us who can actually do it and execute it well.
Yeah, and the equipment needed to do stuff like that safely. You can't be throwing meat into beer. So
yeah. Will likes mushrooms.
Yeah, we're talking about a different kind of mushroom here, man.
Let me ask one more question, and only one word answers or one sentence at the most. What is your favorite adjunct to work with? Russ.
Oh gosh, come back to me. Give me a second.
Ben.
Dragon fruit right now.
Alex. But really,
Honey.
Will, you just didn't fix your name.
Honey, 100%.
Honey. Russ.
Oh gosh, it's so hard because we're all over the place. I think Will kind of took the one that Will kind of took the one that intrigues me the most, because I think there's a lot that we can do with honey that folks aren't doing currently. And I just started 2 beehives, and so I'm really obsessed with honey right now, but I'm not going to steal that one. So I would say it's a fruit, so it's nothing exciting, but the one that really surprised us more than any fruit I think that we've had so far is mulberry. And mulberry is so damn good, and nobody knew it. And so we're about to use it again in a couple other beers, but it is probably one of my favorite fruits we've ever put in a beer is mulberry. So
I
would say
Ben can guess mine.
Honey, mango. Honey is awesome because depending on where you get it, depends on what you get. Depending on the source,
and depending on when you put it in the process.
We just ordered a bunch from New Zealand for our anniversary beer, and just trying to find different characteristics and different profiles from that stuff. And like you said, where are you adding it? How are you adding it? What are you pairing it with? I think the possibilities are almost endless there, and it can be a lot of fun. And it brings out different things and different other ingredients. So that's another fun side of things. It's just learning that along the way too.
And that was something I learned, that it makes 100% complete sense, but I'd never thought of that. Depending on what the bee pollinates, the honey is going to taste completely different.
Yeah. And it's been cool from our side too. We're attenuating out all the beers that have honey in it, so you don't get a lot of that character. But to be able to put it in pre-pasteurization and send it straight through the pasteurizer and actually for real taste that honey has been really cool. And it's a dynamic, again, that people aren't used to, and I think with the adjunct trend game, it's all about finding that piece or that thing that folks aren't used to tasting and accidentally finding the one that pops. And I think, unfermented honey could definitely be one of those things. I think, the secret sauce in the Thick Boy sours it was something that folks have never really had before, and it blew some people's minds. And so, I think we're looking at trying another ingredient here soon, which I may text you guys about later and see if you have any experience with it, because I'm a little worried about it. But it'll be a fun little experiment. But I'm not going to say it on here, until we know it's going to work. 'Cause I don't want to. Last thing you want is people saying we're going to do it and then it doesn't pan out. So, yeah. Well, honestly, loved catching up with you guys. I wish we could keep going. We're already 25 minutes over, but
I started craft beer. I invented craft beer.
You're so stupid. Oh my gosh. Will, I miss you so much.
Hey, we're only 8 hours away, man. Your state's boring to drive through, though, so you have to come here next time.
It's boring going to your state.
Because
Or
you
my
have to drive
state.
through your state to get there.
Hey, I'm actually going to be in.
Come back though.
I'm going to be in Tennessee next week. I think next week. I'll hit you guys up.
Coming down with Jay?
No. I'm coming down for a wedding.
Oh, okay.
So-
He's coming down next week too, I think.
Oh, who is it?
Jay, the guy that I kissed, the camera guy that I kissed.
Oh.
I can't say his name. You can't say his name either. Just call him Jay.
Jeheho. That's what we call him. We call him
Okay.
Jeheho because we can't say his name.
Let's go with
But
that.
Will, I
Or-
gave you my number and you never called me. So I'm
Wow, Will.
Make
Wow.
sure. Oh, I do have your
Wow.
business card actually.
hurt.
I'll call you. Don't worry.
Will's bad at calling, but he's really good at text messages.
I don't
But
want
I'm just
his
gonna.
Yes.
You don't. You do not. No, you do not.
Yes, you
Trust me.
Yes, you
Um,
do.
All right. Well, Will, I'll hit you up and we'll see if maybe we can grab some beers when I'm out there this week. But
Oh yeah, man.
thanks for showing up, buddy, and talking beer trends. And I look forward to getting back together with you dudes sometime soon. And Ben, I think we gotta collab sometime soon. We need to pick a date on that. Actually, Will, we need to pick a date on ours too. We talk about it, but we haven't picked a date. So
At this point, we're just gonna brew it and let you know how it came out.
yeah, just put our if it's good, put our name on it.
Yeah. If it's bad, we'll put who was one of the breweries we didn't like at the festival?
Put Chris in.
Big Boy Glass all over that.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so raw.
Is it
All right.
now?
Is it? No, it's not. Goodness. I lost my train of thought now. You got
You
me
were
on
trying
that
to say goodbye.
So, no, yeah, we'll all get together. We'll do something. I'm for real going to text you dudes after we get off here about the Swedish fish. We can definitely make that one happen. I think it'd be a cool little experiment. But thank you for coming on and talking to us, Chris. You've been awesome helping us out with these things. Thank you, sir. We'll be seeing more of you. And Ben, it's been fun. Look forward to our next tattoo experience together.
Need more.
I'm doing the tattoos for you next time.
I'm okay with it. It can't be any worse than what I've got right now. So, well, all right, dudes. Anybody have any last thoughts? Nope.
Nope. Good.
All right.
So there's a guy.
Hype-
There's a kid and his uncle are walking through the forest.
Is this going to be appropriate?
It's really scary out here, and the uncle goes, "I gotta walk."
I just want to say to the does your brewery make real beer people? Just drink what you like and let everyone else drink what they want to drink.
Agreed.
I'll just leave it at that.
Get
And-
back
yeah.
to arguing about politics or something. Just leave us alone.
All right, I'm gonna sign off here. You guys don't have to hang up right now. It'll stay on for a second, but I'm gonna end the broadcast. Thank you guys for tuning in on the Adjunct and Beer Trends. I guess I should mention as well this whole thing was sponsored by Osner. You'll be seeing some commercials about that and more information coming out about that here soon. So please check them out and yeah, just thank them for helping make this thing happen. And stay tuned. We got more stuff coming at you. Appreciate it.